Hello children, welcome to our today's history session, lesson number 9, Traders, Kings and Pilgrims. So yesterday children, today we are going to continue our lesson. Yesterday we have stopped on this topic, new kingdoms along the coast. So we have seen there were three new rulers, okay, that flourished in southern part of our country, and these rulers were Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas. So we are going to continue this topic. The southern half of the subcontinent is marked by the land coastline. Okay, it is marked by the long coastline with hills, plateaus and river valleys. So among these, Kaveri is the most fertile. So the chiefs and the kings, they tried to control these river valleys and they became more rich and powerful. The Sangam poems mention the Muvendar. So what is this Muvendar? It is a Tamil word meaning three chiefs that were used for the heads of three families. And who were these three families? Ruling families, they were Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas. So each of these three chiefs, they had two centers of power. One inland and other was on the coast. So of these 6 cities, 2 were very important. That was Puhar or Kaveripatnam, the port of Cholas, and Madurai. It was the capital of Pandyas. The chiefs, they did not collect regular taxes. Then what they did? They demanded and they received the gifts from the people. They also went on military expeditions and they collected the tribute from the neighboring areas. They kept some of the wealth and they distributed the rest among the soldiers, among their supporters. Okay, these supporters were the member of their families, then the soldiers and even the poets. So what these poets used to do? These poets, they used to compose. Okay, there are many poets whose compositions are found in the Sangam collection, composed poems in praise of these chiefs. So these poets, they used to praise these chiefs in their poems. So in return, they used to these chiefs, they used to reward them with the precious stones like stones, then gold, or horses and elephants, even fine cloth. Around 200 years later, a dynasty known as the Satyavana Dynasty, okay, it became powerful in Western India. The most important ruler of the Satyavanas was Gautami Putra Sri Satakarni. We know about him from an inscription composed on behalf of his mother Gautami Balashri. He and other Satyavana rulers, they were known as the lords of Dakshinapatha, which literally the route leading to the south, which was also used as the name for the entire southern region. He sent his army to the eastern, western and southern coast. So children, now we will see a video, okay, of this Satyavana rulers.
After the decline of the Mauryan dynasty, the Satavahanas became powerful in western India. King Simuka was the founder of the dynasty. During Mauryan Empire, they were the feudal lords, but in order to fulfill their ambition to control best trade routes of southern and western India, they declared independence from the Mauryan Empire and established Satyavana Dynasty. Gautamiputra Sri Satakarni was the most important and powerful ruler. The Satyavana rulers were known as Dakshin Pathapati, meaning the lords of Dakshin Path. This name implied the route leading to the south and is also used as a name for the entire southern region. This route had gold mines and major seaports, making it one of the best trade routes. Hala, a Satyavana king, is famous for compiling Gaha Sattasai, a collection of poems in Prakrit. The feudal ambitions for expansion of kingdom became the reason for decline of the dynasty.
So children, you are seeing the video, okay, of how the Satyavana rulers, they gained their rule, okay, they gained their control over the Dakshina Path. Now we are going to see the story of Silk Route, okay. The rich glossy colors of silk as well as smooth texture make it a highly valued fabric in most of the societies. Making silk is a complicated process. Raw silk has to be extracted from the cocoons of silkworms. They have to be spun into thread and then woven into the cloth. Techniques of making silk were first invented in China around 7,000 years ago. While the methods remained a closely guarded secret for thousands of years, some people from China who went to the distant lands on foot, horseback and on camels carried silk with them. The paths they followed came to be known as the Silk Route. Means children, first it was a secret method, okay, nobody was knowing how to make silk, only except China. But afterwards when the traders, they started moving from China to distant places on horses or camels, they used to carry this silk with them, and thus it came to be known to everyone. And the path which they followed was known as the Silk Route. Sometimes Chinese rulers, they sent gifts of silk to rulers in Iran and West Asia, and from there the knowledge of silk spread further west. About 2000 years ago, wearing silk became the fashion among the rulers and rich people in Rome. It was very expensive, and as it had to be brought all the way from China, and the way it was very dangerous, okay, it was through mountains and deserts. So people living along the route often demanded payments for allowing the traders to pass through this route. The map given on pages 84 to 85, they shows the Silk Route and its branches. Some kings, they tried to have a control large portions of this route. This was because they could benefit from the taxes, from the tributes and the gifts that were brought by the traders travelling along this route. And in return, these kings, they tried to protect these traders from the robbers, attack of the robbers. And the best known of the rulers who controlled this Silk Route were the Kushanas, okay, who ruled over Central Asia and Northwest India around 2000 years ago. There are two major centers, okay, two major centers of these Kushanas were Peshawar and Mathura. Taxila was also included in their kingdom. During their rule, a branch of Silk Route extended from Central Asia down to the seaports at the mouth of the river Indus, from where silk was shipped westwards to the Roman Empire. The Kushanas were among the earliest rulers of the subcontinent to issue gold coins, and these were used by the traders along the Silk Routes. Means Kushanas, they were the first rulers who issued the gold coins. Now we are going to see the video of children, this Silk Route, okay?
The Silk Route. The silk was a highly valued fabric in most societies, pertaining to its smooth texture and its rich and glossy colors. The techniques of silk making were invented in China about 7,000 years ago. These techniques were not known to anyone until some people from China went to distant lands and carried silk with them. The path they followed came to be known as the Silk Route. The name Silk Route was coined by the German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen. Traders who traveled through these routes often brought with them rich tributes and gifts. Kings tried to control the route so that they could benefit from these taxes, tributes, and gifts brought by traders. In return, they protected those traders from attacks by robbers. The Kushanas were the best known rulers who controlled the Silk Route. This dynasty ruled over Central Asia and Northwest India around 2000 years ago. They were amongst the earliest rulers to issue gold coins for silk trade. Peshawar and Mathura were the two major centers of power along with Takshila. From Central Asia, the Silk Route further extended downwards to the mouth of river Indus. The silk was shipped from here to the Roman Empire. The Chinese rulers sent silk as gifts to the rulers in Iran and West Asia. Gradually, silk became a fashion fabric for the rulers and rich people in Rome.
So now we will go to our next heading, children, the spread of Buddhism, how this religion spread. The most famous Kushana ruler, was Kanishka, who ruled around 1900 years ago. He organized a Buddhist council where scholars met and discussed the important matters. Ashwaghosha, he was a poet, who composed a biography of Buddha, the Buddha Charita. He lived in his court, means whose court he used to live? He lived in the court of Kushana ruler, that is Kanishka. Ashwaghosha and other Buddhist scholars now began writing in Sanskrit. Then a new form of Buddhism known as Mahayana Buddhism now developed. These had two distinct features. What are these two distinct features? First one, earlier Buddha's presence, it was shown in sculpture by using certain signs. For instance, his attainment of enlightenment was shown by the sculptures of people tree. But now the statues of Buddha were made. Many of these were made in Mathura while others were made in Taxila. What was the second change? The second change was a belief in Bodhisattvas. These were supposed to be a persons. Now who are these Bodhisattvas? These were the persons who had attained enlightenment. And once they had attained the enlightenment, they could live in complete isolation and meditate in peace. However, instead of doing that, now they started remaining in the world to teach and help other people. So this was the second change. The worship of Bodhisattvas became very popular and spread throughout Central Asia, China, and later to Korea and Japan. Buddhism also spread to western and southern India, where dozens of caves were hollowed out of hills for monks to live in. Some of these caves were made on the orders of kings and queens, while others by merchants and farmers. So these were often located near the passes through Western Ghats. So these caves, they were located near the Western Ghats. Roads connecting prosperous ports on the coast with cities in the Deccan ran through these passes. Traders probably halted in these caves. Monasteries during their travels. Buddhism also spread southeastward to Sri Lanka Myanmar, Thailand and other parts of Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. The older form of Buddhism, known as Theravada Buddhism, was also more popular in these areas. Now we are going to see the quest of the pilgrims, children. So what do you mean by pilgrims? Pilgrims are the people who undertake journeys, okay, to holy places to offer their worship. As traders journeyed to distant lands in caravans and ships, pilgrims often travelled with them. The best known of these are the Chinese Buddhist pilgrims, like we can call it Faxian, okay, it's Faxian, children, Faxian, who came to the subcontinent about 1600 years ago. Then Xuanzang, who came around 1400 years ago, and Kinge, who came about 50 years after Xuanzang. So they came to visit the places associated with the life of Buddha as well as famous monasteries. So these are the travelers, okay, these are the people, these are the Buddhist pilgrims who came, who visited the places to know about life of Buddha. Each of these pilgrims left an account of his journey, okay. They wrote of the dangers they encountered on their travels, which often took years, of the countries and the monasteries that they visited, and the books they carried with them. So here is one experience, okay, how Faxian returned to China. Faxian began his journey back from Bengal, okay, back home from Bengal. He boarded a ship along to some merchants. They had barely travelled for 2 days when they were caught in a storm. The merchants began throwing their merchandise overboard so as to lighten the load and save the ship from sinking. Faxian, he threw away all his meagre personal belongings, but clung to his books and the statues of Buddha that he had collected. Finally, the storm subsided after 13 days. This is how he described the sea. The sea itself is boundless in extent. It is impossible to know east or west except by observing the sun, moon or the stars in their motions. If it is dark, rainy weather, the only plan is to steer by the wind. It took him more than 90 days to reach Java, where he halted for 5 months before boarding another merchant ship that took him to China. So this is his experience, okay children. Now Xuanzang, who took the land route back to China, that is through the northwest and central Asia, he carried back with him statues of Buddha made of gold, silver and sandalwood, and over 600 manuscripts loaded on the backs of 20 horses. Over 50 manuscripts were lost when the boat on which he was crossing the Indus capsized. He spent the rest of his life translating the remaining manuscripts from Sanskrit into Chinese. Okay, children, now we'll see the video of this spread of Buddhism. Okay.
Kanishka was the most famous Kushan ruler. He had organized a Buddhist council. In this council, scholars met and discussed important matters. The Buddhist scholars also began writing in Sanskrit. Ashvaghosha, a renowned Buddhist scholar, composed Buddha Charita. Two sects of Buddhism emerged. One was known as Hinyan and the other was known as Mahayana. Those who followed Hinyan considered Buddha as a human being They did not believe in idol worship. Those who followed Mahayana considered Buddha as God. They used signs on sculptures to show the presence of Buddha. Many statues of Buddha were made during this period, some of which were made in Mathura and Takshala. The Mahayana group believed in Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas were people who had already attained enlightenment. They taught other people about Buddhist teachings and thus spread Buddhism. People used to worship these Bodhisattvas and they became popular in Central Asia, China, Korea and Japan. Slowly, Buddhism spread to Western and Southern India. Some caves were built by the Buddhist monks on the tracks of Western Ghats and other famous spots. Their regions were fertile and prosperous. The kings, queens, and the traders stayed in those caves during their travel. Buddhism also became popular in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and Indonesia. Here, the older form of Buddhism known as Theravada was popular.
So children, you have seen the video, okay, of how Buddhism religion spread. Now we are going to see about the beginning of Bhakti, okay. So this was also the time when the worship of certain deities, which became a central feature of later Hinduism, they gained in importance. These deities included Shiva, Vishnu and goddesses such as Durga. These deities were worshipped through bhakti, an idea that became very popular at this time. Bhakti is generally understood as a person's devotion to his or her chosen deity. Anybody, whether rich or poor, belonging to the so-called high or low caste, man or woman, could follow the path of bhakti. Means anyone can follow this path. The idea of bhakti is present in the Bhagavad Gita. So what is this Bhagavad Gita, children? It is a sacred book of Hindus, which is included in the Mahabharata. In this, Krishna, the God, he asked Arjuna, his devotee and his friend, to abandon all dharmas and take refuge in him, as only he can set Arjuna free from every evil. This form of worship gradually spread to different parts of the country. Those who followed the system of bhakti emphasized devotion and individual worship of a god or goddesses rather than the performance of elaborate sacrifices. According to this system of belief, if a devotee worships the chosen deity with a pure heart, the deity will appear in the form in which he or she may desire. Okay. So, the deity could be thought of as a human being, as a lion, as a tree, or in any other form. Once this idea gained acceptance, artists started making beautiful images of these deities. Means what belief, children? It was believed that if a devotee, okay, if he worship a god, okay, in whichever form he wants, maybe a human being, a lion or tree, then the deity or the god will appear to him in that form. So here something is given about bhakti movement. It comes from the Sanskrit term bhaj, meaning to divide or share. This suggests an intimate or two-way relationship between the deity and the devotee. Bhakti is directed towards Bhagavat, which is often translated as God, but it also means one who possesses and shares bhaga, literally good fortune or bliss. The devotee known as the Bhakta or the Bhagavata shares his or her chosen deity's bhaga. So now, because the deities were special, these images of the deity were often placed within special homes, places that we describe as temples. So you will be learning more about these temples in chapter 12. Bhakti inspired some of the best expressions in art, sculpture, poetry and architecture. Now we will see the video, children, of this Bhakti.
You must have heard your grandparents singing devotional songs, which are popularly referred to as Bhakti songs. The word Bhakti implies love and devotion for God. This word is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. The word Bhakti is derived from the Sanskrit word Bhaj, which means to divide. Bhakti refers to Bhagavad, which means God. It is God who owns the bhag or the fortune, and he only divides this fortune amongst his bhakts. A bhakt is the one who is devoted to Bhagavad, and therefore he or she receives his or her share of bhag or fortune as a reward. To be a follower of Bhakti, one need not belong to a high class. Anybody could become a bhakt, whether rich or poor, man or woman. Bhakti believed in complete devotion and individual worship of a god or goddess and not in any sacrifices. Worship of deities like Shiva, Vishnu and Durga was very popular. The bhakts believed that if they worshipped truly and with a pure heart, their deity would appear in the desired form. Deities could appear in any form: a lion, a tree, or a human being, any form. Such beliefs led to the development of literature, art, and architecture. Beautiful poems and songs of praise for different deities were written. Artists made beautiful sculptures and statues of different deities, leading to architectural and cultural development.
So here your lesson gets over, children. Just we solve this match the pairs. Just tick the answers, okay? First one, Movendar. It is Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas. Then Lords of Dakshinapatha, Satyavana rulers. Third one, Ashwaghosha. Answer is Buddha Charita. Then fourth, Bodhisattvas. Answer is Mahayana Buddhism. And last one, Xuanzang. It is Chinese Pilgrim. Okay. So your lesson gets over, children. Hope you have understood and you have enjoyed the lessons with the videos. If any doubts are there, we can solve in the doubt session. So we'll meet you in the next session for next lesson. Till then, see you. Goodbye. Thank you.